Hello, everyone. Let's see. Don't know how many people we've got this week, but hopefully it'll be a fun show. Of course, we've got at least one person here for the show. That's Tina. Thanks for being here, Tina. That means we at least have somebody listening to us rambling. Oh, how you doing, Slender?
I'm pretty good. Ironically, I was reading your description here, and it says Equalizer 3 is out, and we have our review. No,
I have a review.
we do not. I have not seen it.
I use the royal we in this context. I was specific about getting you to see Krull for the first time, a 40-year-old movie, and seeing if that's something if that holds up. That'll be a fun
It's
topic of
weird.
discussion.
Here's the weird thing, and I'm gonna plug the book that I haven't even finished writing and need to do more work on because I was on a job hunt for a while, so the book kind of fell off. But and you'll recall this, I was like, this has a lot of elements that are similar to stuff in the book I'm writing. So apparently I write books from back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's a we'll get to it, but I feel like I was much more excited to go see this than you were.
I was really confused because I didn't realize this was like a movie club thing we were going to see. So when that lady started talking, I was like, are they going to kick her out or what? Oh no, this is her thing. Okay. Oh, I guess she gets to talk about it.
Yeah, that's how the old movies. That's one of the things I do like about the Draft House as a chain. They encourage things like that where they'll help set up getting old movies actually playing, as opposed to a chain like AMC, which makes it like so painful to try and get quality movies in there.
Yeah, but this is how jaded I am, right? Like I took one look at that lady and I was like, she does not like my politics. I just knew. I could feel it. I could sense it.
And yet the lineup of movies she has for the next month are all things that you love.
Yeah, pretty good movies.
It's like next week is The Warriors.
Warriors
come out and play. And then the week after that is Roadhouse.
yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah. So it looks like
holy crap, we actually have an audience and they're interested in what you have to say, Lil Chad. So take it away.
Yeah, so I think we'll jump right into the review on the Equalizer because that just opened up. It's and shockingly, which is very different than most movies lately, it's opening above expectations box office wise. It's making more money than they expected.
Okay, so this is a Denzel thing. I think I may have seen one of the Equalizer movies. Yeah, I just can't remember.
Yeah, there have been two previous, hence the Equalizer 3 on the poster.
I never would have guessed.
Well, Equalizer 3. All right, so Equalizer 3 is the third movie in this series, but it's fairly standalone. It's I can tell you honestly, you have no need to have seen either of the first two movies to just jump in and have a good time with this. Yeah, Brahma, you're missing Krull Night. If you can somehow get away from the obligations you have, we'll do that later in the show. And
yeah, we'll hold up on Krull for as long as we can, Brahma.
Hey, welcome to the show. Hello, howdy to you as well. Yeah, so
did you see Bad Take Bojan's comment on that? More money than Blue Beetle.
Impossibles, I say.
Impossible.
If I was a daring man who didn't know what I was saying, I'd say that Equalizer would make more than The Flash, but it's not going to make more than The Flash. It's not making $55 million. But it should. It's actually way better than any of the movies that I'd seen this summer, pretty much. Maybe Oppenheimer, but that's a whole different experience. That's a serious kind of thing.
You can't get me on drama. I have very little interest in movies like that.
I'd say the main takeaway from Equalizer 3, having watched it, so Equalizer as a movie, the way they said, it's actually, number one, it's very well paced. It's actually under 2 hours, Slender. Under 2 hours.
Oh my god, they told the story efficiently?
Oh, howdy culture. Oh, culture raid. Hello, culture raid. That's right. Everyone's in now. Yay. On par
On
with Man
par
on
with Man
Fire.
on
I'd say
Fire.
yes. I
Okay.
would say yes, it was. In the fact, and also one of his main co-star in this movie is Dakota Fanning again as an adult this time, which again brings some of those Man on Fire vibes. And so under 2 hours, so well paced. You can you
Vertical
feel
Horizons beat me to it.
Equalizer was the first John Wick before John Wick.
See,
It
what
was
I
a
kept thinking to myself was, you know what would be awesome, but also signify the death of both franchises, is if there was a crossover with the Equalizer versus John Wick.
geriatric action movie beats all the young whippersnappers. It's sad to say it, but here's why that is. And I was kind of getting around to it is that Denzel Washington is a movie star and he just oozes charisma.
Yeah, they don't make
And
those anymore.
so like a big chunk of this movie is Denzel kind of just living his life in this Italian like coastal town community.
But is he living his best life?
That's the thing. He is living his best life now. He's finding peace. It's that
That's
typical.
not his best life. He's the Equalizer.
Well, that's what comes up next. It's like everything else. Like you get the action hero who's trying to get away from the life that he's had, find
I
peace.
put that life behind me. I don't do that anymore.
But when you get an actor like Denzel or someone with charisma, like old Hollywood action stars who used to have, they give you this thing where even sitting there and having a cup of tea and just talking to somebody is really engrossing. You can't take your eyes off the screen. You're looking at the nuance, the performance, like he's acting with his whole body. It's just so good.
Well,
And
it's something a lot of the older actors, the good ones, obviously, but it's something you're not seeing with the younger generation. I don't know, and we try to stay away from the politics, but I will say I don't know if it's because they're just checking boxes and that's more important, or they're super agreeable, so it's great to have them around because they just agree with everything you say. But it used to be like a great example is one of the biggest failures in the history of movies, right? Waterworld,
mm,
right?
mhm.
Kevin Costner and the original guy who directed it, they couldn't stand each other, but they
This is
worked
true.
together anyway,
I'm
right?
starting to think that Kevin Costner might be the problem because
Well, Kevin Costner is probably a bit of a prima donna. He definitely has that older style of I'm a superstar and I get whatever I want because I say I do.
yeah.
But
So we got
he
Tina
could
coming
do
in
it, you know?
saying that she hasn't seen any of the Equalizer movies. For her, it's hard to beat the original TV series, which is yes. So he's playing Robert McCall.
Yeah,
Um,
but Denzel he's damn good in these. Like
yes,
he's got the charisma. And it used to be that's what you needed to be a superstar because even if people didn't like you, they'd be like, well, he's got that charisma. He's gonna be the character. And now it's like, I don't like that person. I don't want to work with them. Hire someone I find more agreeable.
yeah. And so Bobby's question is, which is better, Denzel's Equalizer or Liam Neeson's Taken? I'm gonna say Denzel's
Denzel.
Equalizer, and it's
And I love Liam Neeson, don't get me wrong, but like Denzel.
so I'm gonna say the first Taken movie I really liked. I
Mhm.
think as the franchise kept going, it became more ridiculous to have Liam Neeson pulling off some of the things he was supposed to be doing.
It didn't need to be a franchise.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It was like where
Like, why
I
does
think
everything need to be what we're at 9 minutes 53 seconds? Wait for it. 3, 2, 1.
we're not even monetized.
Why
Just
does everything need to be a fucking franchise these days?
that yeah. So I don't get that, but Equalizer, because the concept is that he seeks out people to help, it makes it a little easier to put him into those situations compared to Liam Neeson and Taken, where like his family's consistently somehow getting kidnapped. So Taken 1 was solid and good.
I'm going back to Spaceballs with this one, but I am your brother's roommate's cousin's best friend's kidnapper.
Exactly.
What does that make us? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so here you go. Seems to be a palpable decline in autonomy and drives and vision with the new generation of, well, everyone in the industry, especially the ones who are striking, it seems. Yeah. And I think that also shows because the person who directed the Equalizer movies is Antoine Fuqua. I love his work. I
I
think
love his name.
he's
Fuqua.
but you know, like if I start listing off the movies he's directed, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I love those movies.
Oh no, I'm familiar. Like
He did
he's
and he works with Denzel. I watch. He did the remake of the Magnificent Seven, which
Mhm.
I also thought was pretty good. He's directed an entire. I
I
believe
would say
he's.
pretty good would be the best that I'd give the Magnificent Seven because it was
Yeah.
not great, but it was
Do you
pretty
know?
good.
Do you know Antoine Fuqua is also the executive producer of The Mayor of Kingstown? That's
I'm
another
you know how I
project
feel
you
about the
enjoy.
Mayor of Kingstown.
Do you,
It's amazing.
yeah, but he did Training Day. He
Training Day was
did.
pretty good, if nothing else, because Denzel Washington was in that too, wasn't he? No, wait, that wasn't Denzel. That was the other guy.
No, that Denzel was in that. That's what he won an Oscar for.
Okay. Oh, I guess he was just a lot younger back then, huh? Because
Yeah.
he got old.
Did you see Tears of the Sun with
I have seen Tears of the
Bruce Willis?
Sun.
He directed Tears of the Sun.
Tears
He
of the
directed.
Sun. I don't know. It's good. I think I don't put it on the same level as my two favorites, which are obviously Saving Private Ryan and what is it? We Were Soldiers.
Yeah. So you got 3 Taken movies equals you're really bad at your job. Yeah, that's if your family keeps getting taken.
Yeah,
Oh,
you'd think maybe instead of being so reactive, we could get a little proactive. Get the other black actor. I didn't say
oh,
it.
you,
Okay, I didn't
jeez,
say it.
jeez, Slender. But he also did the King Arthur movie with Clive Owen, which I actually enjoyed and thought was fairly good.
Is
It
that the
wasn't.
one that's like almost like a Snatch or a Lock, Stock, and Two
No, no,
Barrels?
that was actually Guy Ritchie did that one. This
I
was the one
fucking
with
hated that movie.
no, this is the one with Keira Knightley,
Okay. I
Clive
don't know if I
Owen.
ever saw it. I don't know if I ever
He
saw
did
it.
Shooter with Mark Wahlberg.
Shooter was good. Mark Wahlberg's
Well,
pretty much good in everything, but Mark
Ol-
Wahlberg is also pretty much Mark Wahlberg in everything.
Olympus Has Fallen, the
Yeah.
first of that franchise. Then he checked out. He didn't keep making them, but that was the best of that series. Then the Equalizer movies, Magnificent Seven, Southpaw.
The Taken prequels will be called Given.
Yeah, the weakest link that I've seen in the last few
I'm going
in
to
his
show it so that he gets his credit.
the weakest link was Infinite, the movie with Mark Wahlberg that came out during COVID. I think it's on Paramount Plus. You can watch. Believe you have that streaming service, so you
I
can watch
believe
it.
I turned off that streaming service because there's no more Mayor of Kingstown to watch. So,
all right. So when the next
been
season of
temporarily suspended.
yeah, when the next season of Mayor of Kingstown comes out, you can check out Infinite. Uh-oh.
No.
I'm sure if Mad
No,
was here, he would
please. No. I'm trying to distance us from Neil Breen projects. Matt almost got us typecast as the Neil Breen podcast, and I don't want to be that.
I think Mad
I
is the
can't
Neil
be
Breen
that. I
podcast.
can't do that, people.
Equalizer has been taken by John Wick. Ultimate crossover. We'll get all the older actors. I mean, somehow the Expendables would have to show up if you're doing that
That's
kind
the
of
thing. The
crossover.
Expendables basically is just the every action hero crossover, right? They just don't call them that. But come on now.
Yes, that I mean they make a point of bringing in all those aged actors.
Mm-hmm.
So the Equalizer, super well done. I think it's paced well. It might feel a little slow when he's just doing his like slice of life segment in the middle, as
I love Slice of Life, and
but
I also
I
watched John Wick 4, so
yeah,
pacing will not be an issue for me.
but I think it's really important because something this movie's doing is it's actually giving time to show you him building the connections to the community, so that when he decides to unleash the righteous fury later, you're really behind it. I listened to a review earlier today on YouTube where someone described the Equalizer movies as a slasher movie where the slasher is the good guy, and that's actually a really good summation of it because the way
Well,
they
he's
get
he's
away
a
with
lot like the Punisher. That'd be another great crossover. The Punisher and the Equalizer get together.
exactly, yeah, and the way because obviously Denzel's not the youngest, most in shape, buff action star now. But what they do with Robert McCall, the character he plays in The Equalizer, he's generally not just going up to people and killing them in like overpowering them.
Mhm.
He's taking them by surprise. He's killing, he's doing elaborate set pieces to make sure he's taking them out with stealth. Like it reminds me of Hitman, the video game where you had to take out like an entire compound worth of guards because you had to do it stealthily and one at a time and that kind of thing.
You clearly do not understand Hitman. You don't have to do it stealthily one at a time. You
The
can.
the ideal way to do it is stealthily one at a
I
time.
mean, if you're concerned with the silent assassin rank at the end of the mission, then sure. But
So
there's
yeah,
nothing stopping you from kicking down the front door and just unloading on everything that moves.
so Vertical Horizons here with Denzel had to redeem Equalizer franchise after Queen Latifah's Shequalizer tried to ruin it. Is that show even still on? I don't.
Oh boy.
I haven't watched it, but I can tell you that in no way does this movie seem related in tangentially in any way to the TV
Tangentially?
show.
Is that what you were going
Tangentially,
for? Tangentially?
I do. Yeah, the word.
It's a word.
It's a
It's a
word.
weird word.
What I'm trying to say is this movie doesn't acknowledge Queen Latifah existing in the world. this is this is Robert McCall Equalizer stories, and that's it. So you don't have to worry about Shequalizer showing up. I already got here. I love stealth takedowns. Don't know why, since I also like war movies. There's something satisfying when you're playing the video game about doing like the stealth takedowns, I think, and doing them well. It's
No,
just it
I
is
agree. I love to be the stealth assassin. Like Tenshu, I grew up with Tenshu and I loved being the stealth assassin. But every once in a while, you just get so sick of trying to run the stealth path that you're like, all right, I'm going loud this time. You know?
oh, this is a like one of those like immovable object versus irresistible force questions. If Brie Larson was Liam Neeson's daughter in Taken, would he go rescue her?
Ah, well, this
Mm.
reminds me of an old
Mm.
story that I was familiar with because I believe they told us about it in like middle school or primary school or something. But have you ever heard of the story, The Ransom of Red Chief?
No, I haven't. Is this going to be like some Illinois school kid story?
It might be an Illinois school kid story. I don't know. But The Ransom of Red Chief was about a rich man, right? And his
Mhm.
son was like just so crazy all the time and so silly. He always liked to pretend that he was Red Chief, but he was just a handful of a son. And these people kidnapped him to try and get him for get the rich dad to ransom him back. They did not realize what they were in for, and they eventually ended up at the moral of the story is Red Chief, the kid who called himself Red Chief, was in fact so ridiculous and crazy that the kidnappers ended up paying the dad to take their kid back because they didn't want him anymore.
Oh, that is that is a good lesson. Don't oh take the money and run.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, let's see. All right. Oh, good one here. Seagal would do a ripoff of this called the Stabilizer, seeing that's what's stopping him from falling through his swivel chairs. Oh, poor Steven Seagal. You remember? I remember when he was like huge.
Well,
I
here's
think.
the thing.
I guess he
He is a
peaked
black belt. Like he
when
does have a black
Under
belt.
Siege, right? Well, Under Siege would be the peak.
Yeah, but Under Siege wasn't even that great. But he does have a black belt. The problem with his particular black belt is it's a black belt specifically designed for
To hold the
martial
chainsaw.
arts when dealing with a person who has a sword.
Oh,
Like I shit you not, the whole point of it was a samurai martial art, and the idea is you've lost your sword, your opponent still has a sword. Here are martial arts that you can do to try and even the odds, and either A, defeat your opponent without your sword while he still has a sword, or B, disarm your opponent so that you're on a level playing field with them. It's not a lethal martial art. It's not a sport martial art. It's literally designed only for the situation where you do not have a sword and your opponent does.
So you got some support though. We've got a Shadow Chaser confirming that he had heard the story you related and that he had gone to school in Texas and Colorado and Germany. So all of the states that aren't Illinois. So clearly this was a widespread parable, I guess it would be, right? Parable.
Yeah, see, I know things. I'm not just making all of this up as I go.
He has a black belt in throwing people jitsu.
No, he has a black belt in turning people's wrists and then them throwing themselves jutsu.
This whole conversation is making me think of The Art of Self-Defense, where he's just like, I have a yellow belt. I
enjoyed that movie. Okay, The Art of Self-Defense was a fun movie. Matt has shown me some pretty terrible movies. I liked that one.
Vertical Rise. With all the weebs with swords nowadays, I think Steven Seagal was right to get that black belt. If he's got to deal with people buying mall swords, and Slender's an expert on that. If you watch the What the Flick series on Mad Barber Entertainment,
well, this was back when it was still movies with Mad. Okay, it wasn't What the Flick yet.
And is he rebranding the previous episodes too?
I can confirm that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 swords and 3 spears within reach of where I am sitting right now.
Bad take, Bojan. Mr. Bojan has a 3rd-degree black belt in ninjutsu. I'm wondering if this is an ambient influence statement or if we really have to be scared about the skills Mr. Bojan has.
I mean, I wouldn't be scared. I've studied some ninjutsu. It's a real thing.
I've studied it in Ninja, Enter the Ninja, Ninja 3, The Domination.
Mostly ninjutsu, in addition to the stealth element, obviously, is about stuns and kill shots. Like it is not a sport martial art. It's about killing people.
Zombie Box Reviews is blowing my mind here. He's telling me that Steven Seagal is well known for exaggerating his accomplishments.
Yes.
That can't be accurate.
No, yeah. I won't even be sarcastic on that one because I take martial arts very seriously, and yes, he is.
And apparently he hangs with Putin. So okay, cool. And then we've got confirmation from Bad Take Bojan. No, it is a true statement because no Ambien is going to be taken for another 45 minutes. Well, I mean, maybe
I'm impressed then. My hat is off to him.
Yeah, that is impressive. Wait. Steven Seagal legit ran away when Jean-Claude Van Damme offered to fight him at Stallone's birthday party. This is a story I need somebody to like act out using AI facial mapping, because it just makes me laugh just thinking about Steven Seagal running away from Jean-Claude Van Damme at Stallone's birthday party.
Considering how big Seagal is, it makes me laugh to think about him running away from anything. Because that dude has put on weight.
He lies a lot. That's true. We're definitely Steven Seagal has never been in a real fight. He has only done fights with rules, from Kitty Bear.
Well, I
Um,
mean, that's true of all martial arts, though. Like, martial arts will not prepare you for a fight. Like, as someone who has been in several fights, you can be damn good at martial arts and still get your ass kicked in a fight.
that's why I liked the scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where it was the stuntman, is played by Brad Pitt, getting into the fight with Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And Bruce Lee's doing the kicks, like and he just grabs his leg and throws him into a car.
Chuck
Oh.
Norris's beard every time.
The question is, who'd win in a fight? Steven Seagal's ponytail, Chuck Norris's beard. It's Chuck Norris's beard. Yeah, that's. Let's see. Bruce fought people in the street. I mean,
Are we talking about Bruce Lee?
Bruce Lee or Bruce Leroy, who fought the Shogun of Harlem.
Well, Bruce Leroy can catch bullets with his teeth.
Catching bullets with his teeth. Oh, if you guys haven't seen Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, that is another quality 80s action movie that you can enjoy.
Didn't we watch that once? I don't
We
think
did
ever
it
made
with
it.
well, because the copyright. There was so much
Oh
copyrighted
yeah,
music
there was
and
no way around it. Yeah, Bruce Lee. I'm on the fence about Bruce Lee. I think Bruce Lee was an incredible martial artist. I think, unlike Steven Seagal, Bruce Lee's legend has been grossly exaggerated at this point. Not by Bruce Lee himself, but
no, yeah, but I think partially by the people who had investment in making those movies with him, who by increasing his legend got more ticket sales.
And this is from a guy who has like Bruce Lee quotes on T-shirts and posters, but I do think his legend is drastically exaggerated. I don't think he was as superhuman as they make him out to be.
So Zombie Box Reviews here with this says Seagal has said in an interview Michael Jai White is not a real fighter. I feel like Michael Jai White has done like legit. I think I've seen stories where he was in like for real martial arts tournaments fighting people and doing things. So that's not a plus for Mr. Seagal. And we've got a Barry Gordy's Last Dragon reference here with the Who's the Master. You got the glow.
Show enough.
Show enough. This is an always confused Penn from Penn and Teller with Steven Seagal. I don't know why. Early on,
that look really similar.
So early on, that was a really hard thing to confuse him because Steven Seagal was actually an action star. But over the years, I would argue that, yeah, Steven Seagal has slowly morphed into looking a lot more like Penn from Penn and Teller because he's gotten a lot bigger. He's gotten a lot less mobile. Oh yeah, Donnie Yen, early movies great. Donnie Yen was great. The Ip Man series is
the Ip Man series is absolutely amazing. He was in Hero or Legend? He was the guy with the spear.
I think he was in Hero.
I think he was in Hero.
Yeah.
But Donnie Yen, he's gotten a little too Hollywood though. I haven't seen him in anything.
No.
Other than the Ip Man movies lately, which
did you see that
his martial arts.
The one thing I wanted to see with Donnie Yen recently was they did a remake of Enter the Dragon.
Okay.
But he was fat. Like they put him in a fat suit.
Yeah. And that's true. Bad Take Bojan is right about that. Like Jet Li, Bruce Lee did need to slow down for the camera. Just because the cameras weren't capable of keeping up back in the day. And if Bruce Lee went at full speed, you would see like shadow fists. It wouldn't look right. That's true. That's just because of their speed. And I bet you Donnie Yen would be much the same because Donnie Yen is really fucking fast. Like he is fast.
So the name of the movie I was thinking of was called Enter the Fat Dragon. It's a remake of Enter the Dragon, but it's Donnie Yen, and they made him. He's like an overweight guy doing it.
Okay.
I'm just gonna be honest. I saw the trailer for it, and I was like, "This movie looks kind of funny. I would like to watch it."
Well, and I know you and I have our differences on that scene, but in John Wick 4, where he fights the fat guy. That's
Scott
one of my
Adkins. Yeah.
that's one of my favorite scenes, and I could not believe Scott Adkins was able to get down in that fat suit. Like
Hmm.
it was believable. It was crazy. I loved it.
Let's see. Have you seen the latest Mortal Kombat movie? I watched it for the first time a few days ago. Oh my god, it was horrible. Yeah, I watched it when it came on, I think HBO Max, like day and date, and it was. I
Dude, the
really liked the
original
first one better.
Yeah, the original Mortal Kombat movie was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was great. I wouldn't say it was bad, but it was pretty good. I enjoy it. And to this day, I enjoy it. It's a bit of a guilty pleasure, especially because they've got Mortal Kombat, and then the music starts playing, and that song is fucking fire.
Yes.
But yeah, every Mortal Kombat since then has been like, you almost got there. Like, you almost recaptured it, but you didn't. It's just not happening.
That
Most
is
martial artists are screwed in a street fight because they are so trained using. Yes, this is actually very true. If you are in a street fight, there are no rules, there are no limits. There are things you can do that you wouldn't be able to do in your sport martial art. So it becomes a very different kind of fight. I've told other people who do martial arts that before. I'm like, yeah, I could probably beat you in a fight. And they're like, yeah, but I have a black belt. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that. And I only have a red belt in Taekwondo, which is not even a fucking fighting thing. But I've been in fights, and I'm willing to bring to bear a level of violence you haven't even perceived. Like,
let's see. Bad take, but Mr. Bojan is telling me to type the Raid Redemption and the Raid 2. Yeah, the Raid movies are fantastic.
yeah.
If you want like straight, I mean, they redefined how they did action. I mean, if you liked Daredevil season 1 on Netflix, that hallway scene was lifted basically directly from the Raid. And
The
how they
hallway
did that
scene was
stuff.
good. Overall, I didn't think it was as good as everyone was making it out to be. I thought it had amazing moments that will withstand history. But
Are we talking about Daredevil or the Raid?
Daredevil,
Okay. No,
it wasn't as good as this is a problem we've run into with a lot of more modern stuff, like the stuff that's been done circa the last 5 years, right? It's not that good. You think it's that good because it comes out amidst all this other trash, and since it is less trashy, it stands above its competition. But it has no competition. Like, I go back and I watch stuff from, early 2000s, late 90s, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's nothing coming even close to this.
Do you realize I looked it up? The first season of Daredevil was like 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
It's getting close to being a decade old. This is
We're old.
Man, I feel
old,
old every
Chad.
time. Every time. You know what? And actually, there we go. This is a good transition then.
Because now we're going to take it way back.
If you thought we were old before, wait till now we talk about a 40-year-old movie, which is Krull.
Krull.
Oh, She-Hulk. Bad take, Vojan. Of course, the hallway scene in She-Hulk was better. I mean, I guess that's why they're giving it a second season, so good for them.
No, didn't watch She-Hulk. The only thing I watched from She-Hulk is when you showed me what they did with the last episode before you had gotten rid of your Disney Plus.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's cute and all, but this isn't a show.
Yeah. Netflix Daredevil greater than the entirety of the MCU. So I'll disagree with that. I think the MCU through Endgame was pretty good. And that's also before they had
and I'll disagree with that. I'll say that the MCU through what was the one before Endgame?
Infinity War.
Infinity War. Wait, it was Infinity War then Endgame, right?
Yes.
Then I will say that the MCU through Infinity War, yes, but I thought Endgame was disappointing. Not bad, but disappointing. There was a lot riding on it, and it could have been a hell of a lot better. It had its moments.
Yeah, but it culminated the entire series. It finished it.
Yes, but it did it fucking poorly.
Well, I mean,
I didn't need Fat Thor. I really didn't. Yes. There were a lot of I don't know. I didn't need Fat Thor. I didn't need what's her name playing fucking Captain Marvel. There were a lot of things
Oh,
where
apparently, hold on. We got apparently Mr. Bojan really excited because he's screaming, "I love the Krull."
ooh, then he might not want to hear what I have to say about it.
Krull is fantastic. All right, so I'm going to give my fanboy opinion on it first.
Okay, you can give your
So,
fanboy opinion, and then I will give a more level-headed and rational response to the movie.
so here's the setup for this segment here. I have seen Krull since I was a child. Was a movie that came out in 1983. Super expensive, one of the most expensive movies ever made. It bombed. It didn't make money, but it found life in home video and on television. So, nice 80s, 90s child that I was, I watched Krull all the friggin' time. I had it on tape because we recorded it from the from the rental copy that we had. And so I watch Krull a lot. I love Krull. I think it's fantastic. I've got a lot of childhood nostalgia going on that probably blinds me to it, but I still think it as an action adventure fantasy movie from the 1980s. I think the sets are amazing and hold up. I think a lot of the special effects, because they were practical, are still pretty good. You can see there's some blue screen issues and some things like that, but it is what it is. But since they did a lot of stuff practically, actually putting people in makeup and in costumes and on sets, I still think it's a great movie. I like the storyline. It's cheesy. But I just really like it. And the glaive is a really great design. It ends up being less important than you would think, but it's a really, I guess, testament to just the people doing the costume and prop designs. So I just love Krull. I think it's great. It's got a lot of great actors in it. If you've watched any of the Harry Potter movies, you're going to end up watching Krull and being like, "Oh, he's in it, and he's in it," and then Liam Neeson pops up in it. This is like the Miss
Yeah, then
Liam
Liam
Neeson.
Neeson tells the king, he's like, "I am possessed of a certain set of skills,
Yeah.
skills that make me a nightmare for people like you."
It's funny because Liam Neeson is helping the king find a kidnapped woman. So this really is a prequel to Taken.
This is where he learned all those
This
skills.
is where he learned all those skills. But if Liam Neeson had a great start to his career. He did like Excalibur, and then he turned around and did Krull. Those are two pretty good movies to start your career with. So for me, Krull is a great movie, holds up. It's got the nostalgia factor, but I still enjoy watching it. The James Horner score, he did this right around the same time he did Wrath of Khan. It's epic high fantasy score. It enhances every scene that it's going off on. I think you can't sleep on the fact that the Horner score just really pumps you up and gets you ready to have a fantasy adventure movie going on. Great movie. Now go ahead and say how terrible you thought it was.
Well, you'll be pleased to know, Lil Chad, I don't think it was terrible. And you mentioned something that I already talked to you about after we watched the damn movie. I really enjoyed the practical sets. Like, I don't know what it is, but modern movies, it's like, oh, green screen. Oh, another green screen. Look at that green screen. Green screen. Green screen looks great here. They did a really good job with that green screen. Ooh, a green screen. Fuck your green screen. Build a fucking set. And it, like, even though it felt enclosed because they were working within the limitations that they had with those practical sets, they looked so fucking good. They looked good. I loved it. It was my favorite part was the practical sets because
Because
it wasn't just all green screen. And
I feel like there is something when an actor gets to put his foot down on something and it has actual weight to what he's
yeah,
stepping
you
on.
can see what's going on. You can see the set moving around. You can see the wind affecting things the way it should, and it's affecting the actor the same way. All these things matter. We don't like everything is a fucking green screen these days, and this reminded me of that to a certain degree. And even when they were doing the weird fucking Lovecraftian stuff in the castle, because the castle looks weird as fuck, right? Like it looks like they're almost running around inside of a giant monster.
Mm-hmm.
Did you catch that? Like it was almost like there were like blood vessels and hands and lungs and brains and stuff. Like it was like they were inside of a giant monster when they went into the
Yeah,
castle.
like the girl was trapped in the eye,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
it was a body. And it was. I thought it was really cool the way they did. Like the structure was bones. Like
Yep.
the bridges. It was rib cages. It was very
And
very
even that,
ominous.
although it didn't necessarily register as super realistic, it was practical, so it felt more real. So I loved that. I think the actors did okay. The main character had the fanciest pants. Like that dude's pants were fancy. So I guess that's why he was the king, because he had fancy pants. But I would say some of the character development was a little weak. Like it ran thin at certain times. But all the characters were likable and memorable at the very least. Just some of them weren't that well developed. And that's not necessarily a hit on the movie itself. I'd say the biggest hit on the movie was the climax. The climax was kind of underwhelming. Maybe just the way it was delivered, but it's like the glaive wasn't the thing he feared at all. It's our love. Our love can defeat him. Fuck you. Like really? Fuck you.
Yeah. It's
Like
a fantasy
went that route.
romance, man.
You
It's a
could have
fantasy
definitely
romance.
went that route, but you didn't need to spell it out for us, you assholes. Come on.
So Zombie Box Review does point out, yes, Christopher Nolan primarily uses practical effects in all of his movies, only resorts to using CGI if it cannot be done practically. And that's where CGI should be. It should be only reserved specifically for things that can't have practical elements or to enhance a practical element on set. I think the reason Jurassic Park still has as much weight to it when you watch it is because the T-Rex was mostly an animatronic. Like when they were doing the close-ups around the people, it was an actual giant T-Rex head they made.
Here's another thing. Like the old Alien movies, they made aliens. All the new shit, yeah, they're CGI. And it's like I don't know what it is, but old Alien, those fucking things scare the shit out of me. And it's because my brain can't go, that's computer generated. Because it's not.
That's true. And Bad Take Bojan trivia time. Lisette Anthony, the female lead from Krull, was in this year's Necronomicon movie released back in May. Now, if you really want some fun news on that one for trivia, Tina,
did they use her voice?
In the movie Krull, they cast Lisette Anthony, but then they proceeded to dub over her voice for the entire movie.
Oh yeah, that was another thing I hated. You could tell. You could tell that it wasn't her speaking, and you could tell her mouth was the words she was saying were not lining up with the voice actor who apparently dubbed her.
Yep. And then make animatronics great again. Yeah, on-set practical animatronics.
Yeah.
Here's a Zombie Box Review points out an excellent part, like the alien queen stabbing and ripping apart Bishop, which was done with practical effects, still looks great when you watch it on film. And Bobby's pointing out you get better reaction from your actors when they see practical effects instead of telling them to use your imagination. That's true because they actually get to see and have an idea of what they're reacting to. And it gives
it's
them
especially bad in modern movies because these kids don't seem to have imaginations.
Yeah, because the on set, if you ever look at it,
but people don't have them anymore.
I like watching the behind the scenes where on set they have like a tennis ball from a string, and they're just so that the actors have an eye point, like a place where they're supposed to put the look for frame of reference, so it looks proper. But all they see is a tennis ball on a string.
That's what they did with Dragonheart, with Sean Connery being the dragon, and the only good Dragonheart movie that was ever made. But like, because they've made like 12 of those.
Yeah,
they're like fucking Land Before Time at this point. There's a shitload of them.
Practical effects will always be superior, and that's right. Vertical Horizons, 100%. Practical effects are going to make a superior movie. I think if you did, I know that especially for space sci-fi movies, they're definitely into the 100% digital rendered models now.
Hmm.
I still would like them to go back and maybe make a physical model and just enhance it with CGI. I think that would be how to get the real optimum picture.
Dude, to give another idea, like, and you can make fun of me because I didn't mention this, but you'll probably make fun of me. When we were watching Krull, the use of practical effects got me once or twice during that movie. Like, no shit, made me like scared me. Like,
Is it when the spider came out?
no, the spider actually didn't bother me because like it's nah, that was they did a good job with it for the time, but it's just too fake. But when
Oh,
she
this
was
is
in the castle and he
mm,
like he was talking to her in her mind or whatever, and be like, "You should be my bride," blah blah blah, and the hand shot up out of the ground like it was going to grab her.
yeah.
Like that got me. I didn't see it coming. Shocked the shit out of me. I got some adrenaline going. I was like, "Whoo, whoo!" That was a little scary. And then when he went to pull the glaive out, and the hand again, the guy grabbed it as he was going to grab the glaive, like. And by the way, that was the best part of the movie was the whole, the glaive being a metaphor for erectile dysfunction when he kept trying to get it to come back to him and it wouldn't come out. And he looked
You
so sad.
oh, you drove that one home, but yeah, where he's especially in his fancy pants.
And
Um,
and she was right there and she's like, we got to go. And he's looking at her. It's like, I swear this never happens.
in Zombie Box Review, if they had used CGI for the chest burster scene, which is an alien, we
Hmm.
would never have had those real horrified reactions. So that's a great story, right? In the first Alien, Ridley
Hmm.
Scott didn't tell the actors exactly what was going to happen. They, I think the official thing was they told him that John Hurt was going to just collapse dead on that table.
Hmm.
And so when they got him onto that table, they did the practical effect of the alien bursting out of his chest, and it freaked the shit out of those like the actress. If you do it, like watch that scene because she didn't know it was coming, and it's like some of the fake blood spurts right on her face. She is like in such horrific terror.
Yeah, that
It's
is an authentic reaction. And
yeah.
sometimes I think it's worth doing that. It's like, okay, they're going to react authentically right then and there. And can they really get mad 10 minutes later? It's like, well, yeah, we're doing an alien movie. You didn't come on, you're fine. You know?
Yeah, I think that's what did the Veronica Cartwright freak out. Then yeah, and that's and you get that like even in Home Alone, right? I think I've told you this one before. If you watch the first Home Alone, when Daniel Stern, who is the taller of the two
Mhm.
wet bandits, is chasing Kevin up the stairs to the attic, and he's reaching for his like leg, and then Kevin grabs the tarantula and
Yeah,
puts it
throws it
on
on his face.
and throws it on his face.
Yep.
They told Daniel Stern it was just going to be a fake spider,
And
and
then it was a real one.
they used the real one. So that scream when the
Yeah.
spider starts moving on his face, because Daniel Stern is terribly scared of spiders, is an authentic, truly like freaked out scream. That's why he's screaming like a girl. He's just like ah.
Well,
That was
and then another example, right? Because we're kind of getting into the examples right now. But
yep.
CG versus practical effects. Empire Strikes Back, AT-AT walkers versus The Last Jedi when all the AT-ATs showed up at the end. And it's like, man, they just didn't look as good, you know?
They didn't have that weight because it's
No.
it's not a real thing moving.
And
Um,
the AT-ATs in Empire, like they had weight.
mhm. And that's where the proper role for I think CG now would be to kind of airbrush that, like when you do something on a blue screen with models, it has that kind of you can tell it's being shot on a blue screen. It has that little halo effect around it when it's being digitally matted into the actual shot. That's where you use CG. You clean that up, right? You make it so that it's less visible that you're blue screening something in.
Yeah,
But
you use CG for touch-ups and you use CG for things that would be completely impossible otherwise. But I will caveat that by saying the vast majority of things are not completely impossible. Like, there's ways to do it. We had practical effects Ninja Turtles back in the day.
Yeah, with the animatronic suits made by, I think, the Jim Henson Company.
Yeah.
And
And
some
they
people
looked
may have
really
watched.
good.
There was the show Farscape, which was done by the Sci-Fi Channel in the late '90s, early 2000s. That was really well done. It had practical puppets that were animatronically moved, and it was really well done too. I still look back at a movie like Dark Crystal, which was done with 100% puppets. Jim Henson Company, and it still is cool. Like seeing them move around. There's definitely some limitations where you can tell it's puppets, but I would lean into doing stuff practically like that, or Labyrinth, which with David Bowie, which also used a lot of puppetry and animatronics. That stuff still has, you can watch it, and there's just, again, there's something to the human eye where you can see physicality, where you can see a physical object moving, that just, I think, is better. I
Yeah,
even
and
watched
I mean,
some.
some of the greatest CGI artists can kind of get, like, they can convey that weight to their models when they put it all together, but it is an extremely rare talent. And honestly, mostly I've seen it in games. And even then, well, that game is like all CG. So their weight matches the world that they're put into, if that makes sense. But this whole using CG right alongside like live action with real people and then CG and like the mix, it's very easy to tell what is and what isn't at that
So
point.
this is a Zombie Box Reviews brings up, I think, probably the best combo besides Jurassic
Oh,
Park,
the T1000 was
which was
amazing.
which was in T2, the T1000. There was obviously there were some effects you cannot physically do, because
Like when they
liquid.
blew his head wide open with the shotgun and they did the mercury, the metal. Oh, yeah, they did a great job with the CGI in that.
Yeah, so I
Like
think that
that's
one.
on par with today.
But they also mixed in physical. Like there's parts where when he morphs his hands into the blades, like especially the little claw ones where he's trying to hook onto the car, they used a physical attachment to his hand at that point, and it was a physical thing, so you could see an object. Right? It
Yeah,
was it was
yeah,
it
it was
was
good.
used to enhance and when needed, create the effect.
Yeah, it was good. Labyrinth
Yeah.
is one of my favorite childhood movies. Yeah, you and my wife would get along swimmingly.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty
Human
sure if
element.
she could have married the Goblin King, she would have. So
I
I
think
guess I was.
she did marry the Goblin King.
I'm not the Goblin King
Well, I mean, you don't kidnap children.
anymore. I've put that life behind me. I'm trying to live a more honest life and not be a murderous cryptid.
I mean, that would make Bride of Slender um, Jennifer Connelly, so that's about right.
Yeah, the Blastoface was bloody amazing. Just
Oh,
and
and
I'd never
when
seen
it's
anything like it. So I was just like, holy shit. His he just reformed it. Oh,
and
like
well,
that was my
also
reaction.
once he's like having trouble reconstituting, and Arnold is using the explosive like Sabo rounds,
Hmm.
and he blows in like half his body with his one arm, and head is like on one side and it's hanging from the giant gaping wound, and then his other half of his body's over there and he's moving around. I mean, that's stuff where the CG isn't, you're not doing that with a practical effect, right? You're not splitting a person in half and letting him still move around on screen like that. So
Yeah.
you do, that's where CG's good.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
There you go. That's another thing. Like everyone this T1000 doubled was a twin actor. That way you didn't have to try to overlay on film. That's a cheat, right? If you need to make sometimes you get somebody who has a twin so that you can do that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
that's how limitations can sometimes lead to creativity. the person who comes to mind was the fat police officer guard at the mental institution in Terminator 2 had a twin brother, and they do the scene where they're standing right opposite each other, and he's like looking at himself, and then the T-1000 kills him. You know, he makes his finger into a needle and goes right through his head.
Yeah, which was cool as shit.
Oh, interesting. Michael Jackson and/or Prince was odd to play the Goblin King. I feel like Prince would have been a better choice for that role if that was, and you know, if you're going with someone who could be closer to Bowie and also have, how do I put this delicately? Um, Somebody you would think would want to have a relationship with a woman.
That wait, what you're saying is fabulous energy.
Yeah, somebody who had, yeah, Prince would be the choice out of those two. I think David Bowie killed it. So hindsight, you know, it's 2020 that they got the right guy for that role.
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
don't agree with Shadow Chaser on the next comment there either. There needs to be a combination of CGI and practical effects. And I do believe modern studios are relying way too heavily on the CGI side, and they've lost touch with the importance of the practical effects.
I would have been down to see Michael Jackson's Goblin King moonwalking with the baby before the dangling baby event. Wow.
Going,
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Linda Hamilton's twin sister at the end.
yeah, yeah.
The latest Terminator movie was basically a T2 rehash.
Well, and
Terminator
here's
sequels
the
are
thing:
so
the
bad.
latest Terminator movie was basically a T2 rehash. Star Wars Episode 7 was basically an Episode 4 rehash. Like, the only way they can even come close to capturing the magic from 20, 30 years ago was by just doing the same story. Like, no, I'm seeing no new stories coming out of these franchises that they're trying to resurrect. They just try to retell the old story with a new spin, but it's barely even a spin.
I mean, I'd be down for them to do a sequel to Krull or a new Krull movie. I mean, it's been 40 years. It was.
I wouldn't mind seeing them redo Krull, but only with updating the effects, the
I would
obviously getting
wanted
new
them to do
actors.
stuff practically too. But
Tell the
yeah,
same story, do plenty of practical effects, make sure you get them Clydesdales, but maybe use a little CG to make them more cool. Like there's a lot of stuff you could do with a movie like Krull, and it was a good movie. Just need to work on
let
the
the
dialogue a
actress
little,
say her own lines. I mean,
and work on the dialogue a little. Like maybe hire a guy like me who's pretty good at dialogue to
you're not
come in
you.
and be
You're,
like,
you
wait, you're gonna say no, 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 it's us, it's our love that can defeat it. Now let's maybe work this a little and not make it so obvious.
well, it was also tying into the erectile dysfunction because she solved the problem, gave him the power of love, and then he had a giant flamethrower guy, you know, that he could shoot from
a
his hand.
giant flaming boner that fired out of his hand.
I told you when we were in the theater when he met back up with the other guys, that the other survivors, and they were like, "We need to get out of here," and he's like, "Stand back, I've got this," and he just blows the door through through the wall of the building, and I'm sure they're like, "What did we miss? Something weird has happened here."
What the hell happened here? And I mean, there's a lot of potential there. I just think certain parts fell very flat on their face. Other parts were done extremely well. Overall, I wouldn't even say pretty good. I'd say kind of great. Not great, but I'll give it kind of great.
I wonder, like,
And you should be over the moon, little Chad, because you know that I don't give a whole lot of movies anything near kind of great.
this is true. It's the, I swear I knew the practical effects and sets would probably win you over.
They did very much
Just
so.
because it's it's so hard to really get Hollywood to commit to doing fantasy now. And aside from the fancy pants, which were very fancy,
They
it
were the
was
fanciest pants.
it was pretty well done. Like I feel like the set pieces that they built for this is stuff that, hey, Amazon, you're doing Wheel of Time, you're doing Rings of Power. Watch Krull and see how they built sets and say, hey, let's build sets that are on par with this movie from 19 fucking 83 and we'll be okay.
And it'd save them a lot of money on production costs.
So this is a good question from Vertical Horizons. I wonder if Liam Neeson looks back fondly on Krull. I bet he does. I mean, he was a young guy. He was probably having a good time shooting that movie. I don't. I would.
He
If
had
Liam,
8 wives,
yeah,
apparently.
if Liam Neeson ever decided he wanted to completely slum it for a YouTube channel with like 179 subscribers, who gets about 13 people watching, only guy by the grace of Culture sending a raid over. By the way, thank you again, Culture. We said thanks earlier, but I'll say it again. Um, then I would love to ask him about the experiences he had making Excalibur and the experience he had making Krull. I bet those are the two that would probably be the most fun stories because so many people were in them. They were big budget, kind of like set piece driven movies. I would love to hear the stories behind the scenes trying to make something like that in the early 80s. Fantasy epics like Krull and Excalibur were the two fantasy movies, and Krull I think would fall into the sci fantasy realm where it's a science fiction kind of fantasy elements because there's guys shooting lasers, there's space travel, so you've got to kind of move it into a little bit of that. But Excalibur is definitely pure fantasy, and those two movies I watched the shit out of growing up. I don't think I hopefully if anybody in the chat remembers doing the same thing, Excalibur and Krull being like just movies you could watch anytime they were playing or going on, man.
Oh, this is interesting. I will. That reminds me. Liam mentioned once that Seagal said that Liam didn't know how to throw a punch.
Were they in a
Okay,
movie together?
I'm gonna give Seagal a little credit on this one, not much, but the truth is most people actually don't know how to throw a punch. There are some mechanics to it, so to speak.
I
One,
want
you don't want your thumb on the inside of your other fingers because then that's how you break your thumb. And two,
I
you
just
want to connect with the two knuckles on your index and middle finger. Those knuckles specifically are the ones you want to connect on, and you want to try and keep your hand as straight as possible as you're throwing the punch because it's kind of like a piston, and you don't want it to bend on connection. And you aim for a spot that's beyond the target. Like if you're trying to punch someone in the face, you don't aim for their face, you aim for the back of their head. So there's a lot of little bits here and there that if you haven't practiced and learned and trained, yeah, you're probably going to throw a punch wrong. So
the the thing that comes is just I'm just trying to think of when Steven Seagal and Liam Neeson might have been in the same movie. I'm just blanking on it. I know Liam Neeson was in Next of Kin with Patrick Swayze, where he was supposed to be playing a West Virginia hillbilly type guy, and his accent was so thick, it was terrible casting, but they just went with it. Um, so, what would Steven Seagal have been in with him?
oh well,
Either
I'm
way,
sorry. Liam was a professional boxer. Then yeah, he probably knows how to throw a fucking punch.
yep. Here's bad take, but my parents forbade us from watching Excalibur when it first came out because of the nudity, so I didn't see it until adulthood. I think I may have told this story previously, but when I was growing up, living on base, especially, one of the only things the base had was the movie theater on base that would get the movies, second, third run. So, but it was super cheap, right? It was only like $1 when you're on base. I don't know if you ever lived on base and saw movies that way, Slender. But we would go to the
Oh,
theater and
Shadow
we'd see.
Chaser. I'm that kind of parent. My parents had zero problems with gore and violence, but nudity, oh my god. Yeah, I'm the
That's
same way.
that's yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like I remember going to see Conan the Barbarian in the Army movie theater,
Hmm.
and Conan the Barbarian is super violent, right?
There's some good
My
nudity in there too.
yeah, my mother would freak out and like had to like cover your eyes. I'm like 4 years old. So I had to cover my eyes anytime boobs came on the screen. But that part where Thulsa Doon's getting his head cut off, she's like, "This is awesome. Go ahead, keep watching." Yeah,
Yeah.
good, good. And then he holds the severed head up, throws it down the stairs. I'm like, oh, this is pretty awesome. I'm like a 4-year-old watching this, but nudity, like for like my entire youth, if we were ever watching a movie as a family, like if nudity came on, we had to cover our eyes with our hands. But the most extreme of violence was a-okay and just fine to watch. So oh, yeah, good. Shadow Chase remembers theaters on base very, very well. Yeah, because when you're living on, especially in a foreign country, you don't have a lot of stuff you can go do. You're like, because you don't want to, you don't, without, it's a big to do to leave the base most of the time. So you don't want to do it. So you do stuff on base. You do the activities on base. You go to the movie theater all the time on base. It's, uh oh. First prawn at the age of 8. I got caught because I was laughing so hard. I mean, I don't know. Cable was a thing. I remember when I was older and cable television was around, like seeing what was on Cinemax after 11 p.m. was pretty much my first introduction to that kind of territory, which I don't know that they still do that kind of content. I haven't had paid television in a long time. Yeah, I don't know if Skinamax is still a
My
thing.
first was one of my friends at school. His dad had like the subscription to Playboy or something. So like we were in middle school and before his dad got home and his parents were both at work, we'd go in and we'd go look at the Playboys in the backyard. Oh, cool. We had no idea what was going on. Then we put them all back before he got home.
Yeah, Shadow Chase. When I first showed up on base, they were showing Star Wars, the first one, and this was in 1983 Germany. Exactly. Like when I was watching Conan, it had come out years before, but movie theaters on military bases, you'd get what the studio would send you to play. It was because the bases weren't, generating money for the studio. So it was just what the studios, I'm sure, did it as a write off towards the troops or whatever. So you'd get what they'd show you. The prints were usually being terrible shaped, scratched up, whatever. But again, you were just happy to have some kind of entertainment that you
Dude,
could
that
go
was
see.
one thing we got. I think it was Star Wars Episode 3. They played it on the carrier I was on. And we got to watch it before everybody else in America. But like there were very strict rules, like you don't get your phones out and try to record this or anything like that. No trying to record it, no anything. But yeah, they set up one of the big old
I
projection
yeah,
screens in the hangar bay, and we got to watch it. That was pretty
I
awesome.
I saw Star Wars Episode 3. I want to say it was at the end of all right. So the movie came out the beginning of May
Hmm.
of 2000. Let's see, 99, 2000, 2005.
Yep.
And I was working for AMC at the time, and I managed to finagle the critic getting into the critic screening, which was done at the end of March, very beginning of April, some basically about a month early. And
Yeah,
I
that's
just
what we got. We got like beginning of April.
and man, when I went there, this was in 2005, so cell phones, it wasn't even iPhone time, I don't think back then. They still made you turn in your phones because they didn't want you taking like pictures with your crappy little flip phones and things. Like you had to put them into like
Of course,
security bags and get
of
them
course,
back
Tina
at the
has
end.
something to say here.
Oh, when our college group of friends were watching porn together, the guys wanted to change the channel because the sex scenes were lame, but the girls wanted to keep watching because it had a plot. So you were watching Cinemax. Yeah, Cinemax ones had plots.
Sort of.
Um, sort of.
Thin plots, but anyway, I'm sorry. I saw that and I just had to bring it up before it went
Yeah, of
by.
course. I'm sure that Mr. Bojan was was Tina at the time pointing out which movies had girls that were okay for him to look at.
Highly
It's
possible.
highly possible. I think uh, weird times college. Like I went to when I was in college. Again, I brought it up. I was there like when Napster came out, and it started out just music, but it with like the first time I looked at Napster, it had 20 terabytes of data, and I thought that was a huge wow, that's so much. Like a week later, it had hundreds and hundreds of terabytes, and I was like, oh my god, that's so much music. And then by the third week, there was a lot more than music on Napster. And one of my roommates, because I was in a quad, that means that's 4 people living in one room. And man, one of my roommates had an unhealthy download habit from Napster as soon as that content started getting on there. And it was just awkward because, in a dorm room, in a quad, like there's not a lot of space. You're going to know what someone's watching on their computer. And that wasn't cool. No, I'm sure in a navy in a boat, regardless how big, like when guys are doing that, it's awkward. And Slender's on mute. I was setting him up
I am
asking a
on
question.
mute. I was sorry.
I was asking if you had the awkward moments on the ship when someone was deciding to watch content and didn't care when other people were around.
Nah, I mean, you kind of. I guess it's what like standards and practices, time and manner restrictions. Like you've got your own little coffin, right? Like we all have our own coffin, correct? And there's a curtain. And if you live on a ship in a berthing where you can hear everything that's going on everywhere, you get headphones pretty early on those deployments because I don't want you to hear what I'm doing, and you don't and you don't want to hear it, and I don't want to hear what you're doing, and nobody wants to hear anybody. So
The Vertical Horizons Tina had total control of the remote, it sounds like. And then Tina, yeah. Yep, I was doing it back then too. So she was confirming that she had approval authority at the time. Oh, that's a fun. I'm sure. I mean, I'm just you've been. I think if I remember right, let's see, Mr. Bojan complains a couple of his dorm buddies spent too much time watching Barnyard Buddies. I don't even know what that is supposed to mean.
is this where I should end the broadcast because we've gone too far?
I'm gonna just unhighlight that and
I feel like I should end the broadcast because we've gone too far. Thanks for the